I motsetning til romanen et filmmanuskript ikke et endelig verk, men manualen til et endelig verk som filmen. Et tradisjonelt vestlig, i den vestlige verden, filmmanuskript handler om viljer, handler om motstridende viljer i konflikt. Denne konflikten da danner dramatikken, den dramatiske rammen eller den dramatiske motoren for historien. Det tradisjonelle filmmanuskriptet basert på 3 akter, en første, andre og tredje akt, med en presentasjon av konflikten, selve konfrontasjonen av konflikten i den midterste akten, og en tredje akt som en forløsningsakt, showdown, og de gode kreftene vinner. Et filmmanuskript består av alt fra 90 til 120 sider, hvorav hver side representerer ca. 1 minutts spilletid.
The writer has to start from a strong character, the creation of character, and a strong action. What happens to that character during the course of your storyline? Those are the 2 basic things that all movies must start with. After you get the strong thematic line of action and character, you build your story with that and then put your story into the parameters of dramatic structure, beginning, middle, and end, and a point, plot point 1 that takes the beginning into the middle, and a point that takes the middle into the end, plot point 2. Well, the first thing that happens when the writer makes a choice of where to have a scene, where to put the scene, there's a couple of things that come into play. The first and the most important is what I call the emotional subtext of the scene. Now, what happens is that many times in film, an image that you put the character in can reflect the inside emotional state of that character. For example, in Witness, Harrison Ford has just found out that Rachel, the woman, the young boy's mother, they are very attracted to each other, and he realizes that he is beginning to fall in love with her. And they have built this on this most beautiful sequence in American filmmaking, the raising of the barn in Witness. The girl, Rachel, Kelly McGillis, makes her actions all silently. She serves him first with his lemonade. She serves his food first, showing everybody defiantly that he is her man. When the day is over and she offers herself to him, there's a scene where he goes down and sees her and she's washing and she's naked from the waist up and she turns around facing him, offering herself to him. They look at each other and then suddenly he lowers his head and turns away. And she, frustrated, she rejected, turns away. And he goes back to his room and there is a storm suddenly brewing. There is lightning, there is thunder. All that reflects the interior emotions that are going through this character that Harrison Ford plays. The outside reflects the inside. That you can do in film. So the writer, many times, when they are creating a scene, when they are sketching in the dynamics, that arena of the scene, need to go in and find the emotional context in order to see whether or not they can find that in a physical manifestation.
I've yet to come across a good movie that didn't start with a good script. And sometimes you go off for something and you say, well, we're almost there, we can get it better while we're shooting, and it's very, very tough. And quite frankly, that's why I gravitate towards writer-directors, because it's hard for me to imagine a director not being able to solve a problem that he or she gets himself into without being able to go back to the script and making sense of it. You can't sell a script to a studio, or probably more importantly to a movie star or a director, until it's as good as it's going to be. Because often these people will read your script only once. And even if you say, look, we've worked on it and it's much better, come take a look at it again, in their mind they think they've already read it. So I think that the role of a producer in terms of developing movies is working as closely and as diligently with the writers can be.
Point of view, you know, is the way a person views the world. Point of view, every character in film has to have a strong point of view, especially the main character, because that point of view reflects who that person is. And point of view is usually a belief system, how he or she views the world. Drama is the conflict between the character and what he wants to achieve or get during the story. All drama is conflict. Without conflict, you have no character. And without character, you have no action. And without action, you have no story. And without story, you ain't got no screenplay. It's that simple.
Når lyden kom etter stumfilmtiden, var jo lydens sentrale funksjon å la publikum høre det skuespillerne snakket om, altså lydfilm, talkies. Lyden har jo etter hvert utviklet seg og blitt en veldig viktig del av filmopplevelsen, og kanskje blitt i hvert fall et av filmmakerens viktigste verktøy for å skape følelse. Bildet er lett å spore, bildet er lett å se og definere og peke ut hva som påvirker oss. Med lyd så er det et mye mer abstrakt fenomen. Hvordan vemod, angst, frykt, humor, glede etc. kan skapes eller legges opp til gjennom bruk av lyd, både lyd og musikk. Så lyd er en kolossalt spennende og kraftfull fortellerkomponent i film.
If you simply saw something on screen and the sound that went with that was exactly what you would expect to go with it, you have created, in that individual case, a certain presence, like I was talking about earlier. You feel that, yes, I am really in this room with this person. But if you limited yourself to that as you made the film, the audience eventually would come to know exactly what to expect. There would be a lack of surprise. Since we were talking about the conversation, there's a scene fairly early on in the film when we're looking at this couple walking around the park in San Francisco. And then all of a sudden, we hear something in the sound that doesn't make any sense. It's a garbled sound. And at that point, the audience must be saying, what's that? Why doesn't that make any sense? And as they're trying to put this together, the film then reveals the fact that somebody is watching these people through a telescopic sight. So we get the idea of an invasion of privacy.
I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing my songs. Well,
But the conversation, I think, particularly because it repeats elements over and over again, and each time you repeat the element, you see or hear different things in it. And this is part of Francis's original conception of the film, was to see the conversation at the beginning, and then to see it in the middle, and then to see it 2/3 of the way through, and then to see it at the end. And even though the conversation itself was the same each time, because of what had happened in between, you thought about it differently.
Kill us if he got the chance.
I think that we're just beginning to really experiment with sound the way we've experimented with images for a long time. That doesn't mean that there haven't been technological improvements, because of course there have. But I think most directors, certainly most American directors, don't know how to use sound. And you'll see an American movie, a mainstream American movie, and it will have sort of pretty straightforward, unexciting sound. And every now and then you'll see a film from a Coppola or a Scorsese or a David Lynch or a Levinson or somebody, and you'll realize that he's doing something new, and that a door doesn't sound like a door, and that a footstep is somehow, the Foley is somehow, brought into a real presence to make a point, not necessarily for dramatic reasons, but to say something about a character. And I think we're really just beginning to explore with some of that, but it's essential. It's in many ways, in some movies, it's clearly as important as the image, and it can say that much. And I don't mean just the music or to what degree the music is mixed with the dialogue. There's so much else that you can add to it, and I don't think that many directors being that original with sound today.
Most of the sound design for me occurs either in the writing stage where you write it into the screenplay. Sometimes you will have those effects are described, and often the sound is designed after the film is over. It's difficult to do it actually during production because much of production is the recording of realism or what your actors are doing. And sometimes some accidents do occur, and if you're on an exotic location, we'll go out and try to get the insects and the birds of that location, or the sounds of the wind, or storms that occur. These things are always beautiful, and sometimes better than what you can design.
One of the most important things about sound is that we are not fully aware of what's being done with sound. We hear it, but we don't question it. Whereas the image, if something is, excuse me, is backlit, or we see a zoom shot, or we do a long dolly shot or something, we have a sense of what's going on. With sound, we don't. And I think that there's an interpretive element that not enough people are playing with.
Det som kanskje skiller film i størst grad fra alle andre kunstformer, er filmens evne til å manipulere med tid. At vi har parallell handling, at vi har flashbacks, altså fortidshandling, at vi kan klippe til ting som ennå ikke har skjedd i historien, at man kan gå inn og klippe fra et nærbilde til et point of view, hvor personen i nærbildet ser noe som får oss til å danne oss oppfatninger om dette mennesket, den opplevelsen. Altså, forskjellen på realtid, den tiden det virkelig tar å utføre ting, og den tiden det tar å utføre ting på film. Og dette å manipulere og spille med realtid og filmtid opp imot hverandre er en av de mest fantastiske virkemidlene vi har i filmspråket. Og det er også kanskje det som gjør at film på mange måter er det som ligner mest på drømmen.
Flashbacks is a very, very precise tool that the writer or the director can use. Now, sometimes a flashback will help the narrative of a story tremendously because we take the present moment and we expand it through the character's point of view. There are many films that take what a character is thinking and we reveal it visually. That lends more insight into the character. So flashbacks, flash forwards, even subjective thinking on the characters, that to me is totally possible and works extremely well in the right place. Many writers don't know when to use it, and they don't use it correctly. So then it gets in the way of the action, impeding the action, rather than moving it forward.
One of the things that I've learned recently is how you can deceive an audience and undercrank or overcrank a camera. Not by much, not to do a pixelation movement, but instead of going to 24 frames, maybe going to 28 frames or 30 frames or something. So you give what you end up doing is you give the illusion of something taking place quicker than it actually took place, but without it registering to an audience that something's being played with and that somehow something is not, strictly speaking, real.
To talk about film time and the compression of film time and the language of time in films is to also talk about the conventions of the time that we have in our heads when we dream, and dream time, with all of the different mixtures of levels of present and past and future and imagined that take place in our head when we dream. And I think it's the miracle of film is that film is a very mechanical device. It's a material-based medium, and that somehow we've found a way in something that's very materially based to imitate the most immaterial of all of our experiences, which is the dream state.
Film time and real time have no relation whatsoever. I mean, I don't deal in real time in any film. If I did, the films, I think, would be very boring.
Conversation, there is a shot where Gene Hackman is walking away from the camera. He's come up in the elevator and he's walking away from the camera, and he's very much centered in the screen, and the distance is very long from the elevator to where he's getting to. If I allowed him to actually walk that whole distance, which he did, we filmed it, you would become bored. It's just that at that point in which the audience understands fully what this shot is and you're not presenting any new information, and so they're constantly looking for something that will surprise them on some level.
Morning.
And there's an article in here about the convention that mentions your name.
Well, I have just done something that is technically or physically impossible. A man has suddenly, in the twinkling of an eye, crossed 30 feet of space and is in the middle of a gesture. How can this be? Well, in reality, it can't be, but in film and in dreams, it happens all the time.